Here, new episode of Soloing Secrets, and this is Jimi Hendrix, a big one, and I've had a lot of requests to feature more of Jimi's music, and if you search and scroll around on the channel, you'll find episodes of Chord Play and 3-for-All devoted to Jimi. You know, a legend of the guitar, a very important icon and pioneer of the electric guitar, influenced everybody. The people on the scene, you know, think of all the British, you know, blues rock legends, Clapton, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, Pete Townsend. You know, the Beatles loved Jimi Hendrix. I mean, everybody, as soon as Hendrix erupted, everybody stopped what they were doing and noticed, you know, what he was doing. And he just paved the way, opened the door, or kicked that door open, and definitely, you know, played different effects and fuzz and wah and univibe and octave effects and stuff. But we're going to turn all the effects off, and we're not going to really worry about the swirly, you know, wah and fuzz sounds. We're really going to get in the trenches and uncover some of those things that Hendrix did. And even though the colorizing, you know, with the effects and all that stuff is really cool, but if you take all the effects away and really look at what Jimi played, you know, in solos and fills and stuff like that, you can really get a better idea of where he was coming from. And then when you kick the wah and the fuzz and the octave effects and stuff on, it'll sound even better. So here we go. This episode is going to focus on phrasing, bending, and vibrato, and really putting these ideas and melodies and phrases and licks and stuff together in Hendrix's, you know, style. And there's a lot of things that Jimi liked to do. Obviously, you know, scale-wise, he loved, you know, minor pentatonic, the blues scale, hybrid pentatonic scales, and, you know, lots of bending, lots of vibrato, this really intense, soulful sound, and a huge blues influence. You know, Jimi loved blues. But he also liked jazz, he also liked funk, he also toured and played a lot of soul and R&B, you know, backing up people like Little Richard. So Hendrix's style was all over the place. You know, it was rock, but it was also blues and funk and little bits of jazz and even like little elements of classical and stuff. So here's an image with some of Hendrix's soloing secrets. In preparation for this lesson, I approached this completely different. I haven't done this with any other episodes on this channel, but I took the original 3 studio albums, Are You Experienced, Axis Bold as Love, and Electric Ladyland, and I analyzed the transcription books, and I literally just took note of his phrasing, you know, the movements and the fills and the licks and the solos and stuff, and really picking out those common things that were popping up, you know, similar movements, similar ideas and phrasing and stuff. So if you're a Hendrix fan, you're going to learn a lot of Hendrix-isms in this lesson, as far as bending, vibrato, and putting licks together. First thing we need to do here is pick a key, and I'm going to pick the key of C sharp minor, and definitely Jimi liked C sharp minor. He also preferred E, A, and F sharp as far as some of his favorite keys, but C sharp minor is really cool. Definitely Jimi loved pentatonic scales, minor pentatonic and the minor blues scale, and the C sharp minor pentatonic box is right here. And then the blues scale is the same thing, just add the flat 5 right there. And then definitely I noticed, like, going through the transcription books and analyzing, you know, his lead playing and fills and licks and stuff, you know, he definitely played lower. You know, there are examples of him playing on the wound strings and on those bass, you know, strings lower on the fretboard. But 9 times out of 10, I noticed Jimi played out of the middle area of the scale. You know, like he kind of liked this area. And, you know, occasionally, every once in a while, he would dip lower. Always would go right back into that middle ground or that upper area there. So let's build a lick out of this kind of top part of the scale, and let's just target this 1 octave fragment right here. Jimmy's way. I'm not using my pinky right there. Normally I would use my pinky. But Jimi liked, you know, this 3-fingered approach for a lot of stuff. So I'm trying to emulate that, you know, and playing through some of this stuff. But let's just target this really common bending lick right here. Right. Gonna bend that F sharp to G sharp and then fret G sharp and then C sharp right there, a stock bending lick. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna play that lick, and then I want you to grab B right there on the B string, bend that up to C sharp and bring it back down like this. Right? And then I want you to variate it. Now try, instead of the B note, now grab E right there on the high E string and bend that to F sharp at the end, like this. And those are 2 variations of kind of a Hendrix, bend. Right? And definitely Jimi loved targeting the 3rd, and in C sharp minor, E is going to be that minor 3rd, and we're getting ready to hit the 3rds really hard. But right there, we could take that lick, we started with this, and we changed it to this, then we changed it to this, and now we're going to end on the 3rd right there, that E. And it's kind of a tricky, maneuver, because you're going to do that first bend, and you want to make sure you have enough of your index finger to where you can grab that E at the end, like that. So you're kind of over fretting in a way. You're kind of fretting it a little differently than you normally would. Ending on that E note right there, so watch out for that. And targeting the 3rd like that's one of Hendrix's big things. Like, he loved doing that. It's all over his music. So there's one approach right there. Doing that typical bending move that we just did, and then we're targeting that E at the end. Right? But let's do another variation of that. Let's just basically do this. I'm grabbing F sharp, bending that to G sharp, fretting G sharp, and then I'm going to do a bend and release F sharp to G sharp, back to F sharp, and then end on that E. Like that. Here's another one. Just basically grab this F sharp, slide to nowhere, and then you're going to shift back and target the 3rd again. And Jimi loved doing this. Like that. Like noise with the slide, and then you hear the 3rd. Well, let's grab this B note, and we're going to basically manipulate that bend and do a bend and then a release, a bend and a release, and then target the 3rd. Like that. Right? Very standard, kind of Hendrixism, hitting that 3rd and just nailing it right there. Next up, we're going to target Jimi's bending style, and going through those transcription books, I noticed tons and tons of bending licks and variations of these ideas. So I'm going to take those ideas that I saw and just put them all into C sharp minor pentatonic right here and share them with the viewers here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lock in the box again right here, and let's go ahead and start with those first few licks that we already looked at right here, and this one. So there's that really typical bending move right there, and then I bent that B to C sharp the first time, and then bent E to F sharp the second time. Now let's go ahead and put that really typical pull off right there, that B to G sharp pull off, like that. You can definitely find Jimi playing that lick, which that's a standard bending lick. Now let's flip that B to E and do it again like this. just hopping over to that high E at the end. And then you can do all sorts of variations of this. So right there I'm doing that lick. And now I'm grabbing that A sharp right there. An outside note from the pentatonic scale and maybe manipulate it or bend it into the right note, from the pentatonic. The next thing we're going to do is make some more variations of those bending licks, and the first thing we're going to try is we're going to modify that opening phrase, like the starting phrase we had here. So instead of playing that G sharp on the B string, let's change that note to a B on the B string. So instead of this, now we're doing this. It's a little different flow. Compared to the other way. Just that little subtle change makes a big difference. It kind of creates, a different situation on the fretboard. You're probably going to play licks and phrases differently just by modifying that one note. And let's target this E note and bend that to F sharp, but we're going to do that same kind of setup move like this. Targeting that B note right there. We could also target the minor third, that E, by doing the same thing. Like that. And that kind of reminds me of a lick that's in the Wind Cries Mary solo. Like that, the same key too actually, but... Right? And there we're doing that bend on the B string and then he's grabbing that A sharp right there. Right? And it ends on that third. Really common phrase. Spanish Castle Magic lick, something like this. Right? And there we're grabbing that B. Grabbing that B up a whole step, and then we're doing that hammer on pull off, C sharp to E, C sharp to that G sharp. And there's a whole bunch of variations of licks that we can make, just out of this one octave, fragment of C sharp minor pentatonic. Finding different ways of manipulating, but the bends are going to be that off that E, the B, and that F sharp right there. Next up, we're going to take a look at Jimi's catch bending, and this is a signature move from him. And I've also spotted, Steve Lukather borrowing this lick from Jimi. Of course, Lukather loves Hendrix, but you can hear this in Gypsy Eyes, Machine Gun, Long Hot Summer Night. Red House. There's a whole bunch of Hendrix songs that feature this, but in C sharp minor the catch bending is like this. One more time. One more time. It's a really cool lick, a really cool trick or whatever, and you can hear that smear. I just screwed it up. But you can definitely hear that smear moving from the B to the G. So what we're doing is we're bending that B note on the B string up a whole step, and then your finger's literally scooching over to the G string, and now magically you're going to be on the note G right there on the G. So when you bend that B up a whole step, you're actually going to catch the G string, and it's just a half step right there. You're going to pick that G string and release it. It's really hard to do because you're literally moving from one string to the other. And one thing you don't want to do, you don't want to do this. Like you don't want to let go of that B string, because that will not sound good if you accidentally, let go of that string. So you're catching the G and you're also still holding the B, so that's a handful right there. And then you're ending on that E and then C sharp. Like that. And you can do it in other keys. C sharp, and we can also do it off the high E and the B right there. Right there, it's a little harder to do. So definitely spend a little bit of time with that and kind of get used to that catch bending. It's tricky, but it's so cool. And Jimi also loved unison bends, and you can hear these, you know, like in the middle of fills and riffs and stuff, you know, in songs, but then also obviously in guitar solos too. And unison bends really shape up your hand. Like if you're not really used to doing them, you really have to pay attention, because you want both those notes to be the exact same pitch. It's a unison. So you don't want any of that out of tune. You don't want any of that in there. You want it to be perfectly in tune right there. And that's tough, you know, to sit there and really find that sweet spot. And if you have a solo or part of a song and it needs like a big bend moment, think about unison bends, because you can hear them obviously in Hendrix's songs. You can also hear this in Frankenstein, Edgar Winter Group, you know, Van Halen and Jimmy Page. There's a whole bunch of players that use unison bends. But it's really cool. And you kind of have this transparent, kind of beefed up, you know, bend sound. And aside from unison bends, of course, Jimi also loves, you know, like double stops and compound bends and stuff. You know, these compound bends. Bends are kind of elusive until you actually sit there and work on them. You know, they're really tricky. Jimi also loved using double stops, and you can actually find and practice double stops using the minor pentatonic scale like this. Just play it in fourths. It's kind of showing you like where those, you know, double stops are grouped right there. Just combine them together. Finding those double stops like that. Two strings and two notes at a time. And you can also, you know, start traveling along different positions of minor pentatonic and uncover them that way. Right? You could separate the notes. Or you could just play them as, you know, two string double stop. Double stops and manipulated them, and he you know, had a big R&B and soul background because he toured with a lot of R&B and soul artists, and that's where he started getting those real playful, right, and you're just taking a double stop but then you're adding an additional note. Aside from the intense bending and vibrato and also the double stop moves, Jimi also loved legato, hammer-ons and pull-offs, and he would do all sorts of stuff using legato. You know, something like this. And right there we're in C sharp minor pentatonic, but we're just running, you know, these pull-offs. And that middle ground right there. Like that. It's a really cool, like, fluid lick. That targeted minor third, that E note right there. And then another phrase, sometimes he would do this. Right? And there I'm literally just grabbing E, that C sharp to the open E, and it's all pull-offs right there. Sometimes you could do that kind of slow, but then you could really get going fast. Really cool. And there's tons of examples of this. So you can definitely do the quick runs and stuff. You could hear those kind of Motown and R&B inspired hammer-ons and pull-offs in there. Right, like that. And you can really just basically walk through the scale. And you can kind of find those little connecting areas. Just finding areas where you can literally just add a hammer-on and or a pull-off. Right? I love that kind of stuff. It's awesome. Think of songs like Red House, and you can hear those quick pull-offs and stuff at times, like this kind of stuff. And right there I'm just pulling off, B to G sharp, and then grabbing that F sharp right there. And then you could do it on the high strings too, like the high E to the B. So as soon as you learn a lick in one area and using a certain group of strings, I definitely would recommend changing it, move it, change it to a different position or a different set of strings, a different key, and just see what happens. All right, that's going to wrap this episode of Soloing Secrets with Jimi Hendrix. And as you could tell, there was a lot of bending and vibrato and variations of licks, hiding in this episode. And that's a big part of what you're going to find when you tackle Hendrix's music. You're going to see, familiar, phrases and movements and ideas, but maybe he's playing it low in one song, and then another song maybe he's playing it higher, or maybe it's on one set of strings, in one part of the solo, and then a different set of strings, like later in the solo. So you never really know, what Hendrix was going to do until he did it. But it's really exciting to, jump into a player like this, a legendary, guitarist like Hendrix, and just really take away some of those things that he'd like to play. So keep in mind, some of these licks that I showed in this episode, it may have came from Foxy Lady or Voodoo Child or Purple Haze or something, but I did kind of put everything in that same position and the same key, C sharp minor pentatonic. That way you can see these little variations and changes. So the next thing I would recommend, dive deeper into Hendrix's music and see if you can find some of these ideas hiding in some of his licks and solos and phrases. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.